So hey guys, this is your favorite fictional vortex. So in this video, we will see what if Naruto was the heir of the Primordial Force, the sage who created Jedi and Sith Naruto x Ahsoka Tano x Shaak T Star Wars. But before we start, remember to subscribe and like this video. Now let's start. Chapter 1. Echoes Across Dimensions. Dawn painted the Valley of the End in hues of amber and gold, sunlight dancing across the cascading waterfall between the massive statues of Hashirama Senju and Madara Uchiha. Naruto Uzumaki stood atop the first Hokage's stone head, wind tousling his sun-kissed hair as he surveyed the landscape that had witnessed so much of his world's history. At 19, his features had sharpened, jawline more defined, though his azure eyes still held that glimmer of determined optimism that had carried him through the Fourth Great Ninja War. 6 months had passed since the defeat of Kagaya Otsutsuki. 6 months of rebuilding, of healing, of forging a tentative peace across the shinobi nations. Yet something called him back to this place, a persistent tugging at the edges of his consciousness that grew stronger with each passing day. You feel it too, don't you? Naruto murmured, the question directed inward. I've been sensing it for weeks now, Kurama's gruff voice resonated in his mind. Something ancient stirs beneath this valley. Something older than me, perhaps older than the Sage of Six Paths himself. Naruto closed his eyes, extending his senses as sage mode washed over him, orange pigmentation embracing his eyelids. The natural energy flowed through him, painting a vivid tapestry of life and chakra across the landscape. But beneath it all pulsed something different, a frequency of energy that seemed to vibrate on a fundamentally different wavelength than chakra. There, he whispered, eyes snapping open. Below the waterfall, with practiced ease, he leapt from the statue. Body streamlined as he plummeted alongside the thunderous cascade. Water spray kissed his skin as he twisted midair, landing with cat-like grace on the rippling surface of the pool below. The sensation grew stronger here, a rhythmic thrumming that seemed to emanate from somewhere beneath the rock face behind the waterfall. Be cautious, Naruto, Kurama warned. This energy, it doesn't feel malevolent. But it's unlike anything I've encountered in my 1,000 years. Only one way to find out what it is, Naruto replied, a hint of his old impetuous grin flashing across his face. He waded through the churning water, the roar of the falls deafening as he slipped behind the liquid curtain. The rock wall behind appeared solid, unremarkable save for the faint moss clinging to its damp surface. But as Naruto pressed his palm against the cool stone, a flicker of azure energy, neither chakra nor natural energy, raced from his fingertips into the rock. The wall shuddered, ancient. Stone grinding against stone as a previously invisible seam split down the middle, revealing a narrow passage that plunged into darkness. Well, that's not ominous at all, Naruto muttered sarcastically, summoning a small Rasengan to provide illumination. The swirling orb of chakra cast shifting shadows along the rough-hewn corridor as he ventured deeper into the earth. The passage descended in a gentle spiral, walls transitioning from natural rock to precisely cut stone blocks bearing faded inscriptions in a language Naruto didn't recognize. The air grew heavier, charged with that strange energy that seemed to resonate with something deep within him, beyond even his connection to Kurama or the natural world. After walking for what felt like an eternity, the corridor opened into a vast, circular chamber. Naruto's Rasengan barely illuminated its edges, but as he stepped forward, ancient mechanisms stirred to life. One by one, crystalline structures embedded in the walls began to glow. With an inner light. Not the harsh artificial illumination of electricity, but something softer, more organic, pulsing like a heartbeat. What is this place? Naruto breathed, his voice echoing in the cavernous space. At the center of the chamber stood a dais supporting a stone table. Upon it rested a single object, a hexagonal crystal prism, roughly the size of his palm, that glowed with an inner light that shifted between blues and purples and colors Naruto had no names for. Naruto, Kurama's voice held an unusual note of reverence. Look at the walls. As the chamber brightened, the walls revealed themselves to be covered in intricate carvings and frescoes. They depicted a single figure, tall and regal, bearing a staff that seemed to channel energy from the heavens and earth simultaneously. The figure was shown teaching different peoples across what appeared to be different worlds, some recognized as the ancient clans of the shinobi world, others wholly alien to Naruto's eyes. But most striking was the central mural directly behind the stone table. It showed the same figure with arms outstretched, separating what appeared to be a single stream of energy into two distinct NCT flows, one becoming recognizable as chakra, flowing toward familiar landscapes, the other taking a different form entirely, streaming toward stars and worlds unknown. The primordial sage, Naruto read aloud, surprised to find he could suddenly understand the inscriptions beneath the mural. The one who was before the divide. This predates everything we know, ****, Kurama said, his mental voice hushed. Before the Sage of Six Paths, before the 10 Tails, before chakra itself, there was something else. Something whole. Naruto approached the crystal prism cautiously, noting how the energy within it seemed to reach toward him, like tendrils of light straining to make contact. It recognizes us, he realized. Or something in us. Be careful, Naruto. We don't know what. But Naruto's fingers had already brushed against the crystal's surface. The moment contact was made, the prism erupted with blinding light. The energy contained within surged up his arm, not painful but overwhelming in its intensity. Visions flashed behind his eyes, countless worlds, infinite varieties of life, and through it all, a single energy binding everything together. Then came the fracture. A cosmic sundering that split this primordial force into distinct energies across separate dimensions, meant never to reunite. Naruto saw the figure from the murals, the primordial sage, directing this division with solemn purpose. A necessary sacrifice to prevent some greater catastrophe. The final vision showed a prophecy, two divided realms approaching catastrophic instability, and a descendant of two bloodlines. Bearing the mark of the sun, who would walk between worlds to restore balance. Gasping, Naruto stumbled backward as the connection broke. The crystal pulsed more intensely now, its rhythm syncing with his heartbeat. The entire chamber began to tremble, dust raining from the ceiling as the ancient space awakened fully for the first time in millennia. Naruto, we need to leave, now. Kurama growled urgently. What's happening? Naruto shouted over the increasing rumble. The barrier between dimensions is thinning. That crystal wasn't just a record, it's a key. The trembling intensified, stone cracking beneath Naruto's feet as the chamber's floor began to collapse inward, revealing not earth or rock below but a swirling vortex of energy in impossible colors. Naruto leapt back toward the entrance. But the corridor had sealed itself. He spun around, searching for another exit as the platform beneath the crystal crumbled away. The prism remained suspended in midair, its light now blinding. Use my chakra, Kurama roared. Try to stabilize yourself. Golden chakra enveloped Naruto's form as he called upon his partner's power, but the vortex below seemed to devour it. Pulling the energy downward, the crystal pulsed one final time before shattering, its fragments dissolving into motes of light that spiraled around Naruto. I think, Naruto said with grim realization. This is exactly what's supposed to happen. The floor gave way completely. As Naruto fell into the dimensional rift, time and space warped around him. His consciousness shed across infinite possibilities before compressing into a single point of light hurtling through the void between worlds. His last coherent thought was a fleeting memory of Kakashi's favorite saying, "Look underneath the underneath." Naruto had certainly found what lay beneath the valley of the end, and it was about to change everything. The jungles of Felucia teemed with bioluminescent life. Massive fungal growths towering above the Republic troops entrenched along a ridgeline. Ahsoka Tano moved like a shadow through the undergrowth, her twin lightsabers unlit as she scouted ahead of the main force. The humidity clung to her orange skin, her Montral sensory organs picking up subtle vibrations through the dense foliage. Sector 4 clear, she whispered into her comlink. But something feels off, Master Plo. The separatist forces are moving erratically, not like their usual battle patterns. Proceed with caution, little, Soka, Plo Koon's modulated voice crackled through the device. Our intelligence suggests they're testing a new weapon on this campaign. Copy that, she replied, slipping the comlink back onto her belt. At 17, Ahsoka had grown into a formidable fighter since leaving the Jedi Order, though recent events had brought her back as an independent ally to the Republic forces. Her white lightsabers, purified from red crystals she'd obtained during her journeys, represented her chosen path, neither Jedi nor Sith, but something uniquely her own. A disturbance in the Force prickled at her awareness. Something approaching from above, but not the mechanical precision of separatist ships. This felt chaotic, wild, like nothing she'd sensed before. Ahsoka glanced skyward just as a blinding light tore through the atmospheric cloud cover. What initially appeared to be a meteor streaked across the alien sky, trailing energy that shimmered with colors she'd never seen the Force manifest before. Her comlink erupted with chatter. Unknown energy signature detected. All units be advised, unidentified object entering battle zone. Is it Separatist? Republic? Neither. Energy profile doesn't match anything in our database. The object? No, the person. She realized with shock, impacted the jungle half a kilometer ahead. The ground shook with the force of the landing, sending flocks of native avians scattering into the air. Without hesitation, Ahsoka sprinted toward the impact site, curiosity and caution warring within her. Behind her, the distinct mechanical march of battle droids suddenly accelerated. The Separatists had detected the anomaly as well, and they were converging on it with singular purpose. Ahsoka pushed herself faster, calling on the Force to enhance her speed. She leapt over twisted roots and ducked beneath hanging vines, her path illuminated by the bioluminescent flora. The strange energy signature grew stronger as she approached, resonating oddly with the Force around her, not disrupting it, but harmonizing with it in a way she'd never experienced. She skidded to a halt at the edge of a small clearing created by the impact. At its center stood a figure who couldn't have been much older than herself, a human male with spiky blonde hair and curious facial markings that resembled whiskers. His attire was unlike anything from Republic or Separatist worlds, orange and black garments of unfamiliar design, with a metal plate bearing an unfamiliar spiral leaf symbol tied to his forehead. The stranger appeared momentarily disoriented, glancing around the alien landscape with wide blue eyes. But his posture, balanced, centered, ready, told Ahsoka this was no ordinary person. He moved like a warrior, despite his apparent confusion. Before she could approach or call out, the distinctive sound of battle droids crashing through the underbrush filled the clearing. Within moments, a full platoon of B-1 and B-2 battle droids had surrounded the impact site, blasters trained on the newcomer. Unidentified life form, the command droid announced in its mechanical monotone. You have entered a Separatist-controlled zone. Surrender immediately for interrogation. The blonde stranger cocked his head, clearly not understanding the droid's language. His eyes narrowed as he assessed the mechanical beings surrounding him, hands raising slightly in what might have been a placating gesture, or preparation for combat. Failure to comply will result in immediate termination, the droid continued, adjusting its blaster. Commencing countdown. 3. Ahsoka's hand moved to her lightsabers. Though she didn't know who this stranger was, she couldn't stand by and watch him be executed. 2. The stranger's expression shifted, confusion giving way to resolute determination as he seemed to recognize the droid's hostile intent. 1. Multiple events happened simultaneously. Ahsoka ignited her lightsabers, preparing to intervene. The droids opened fire, red blaster bolts streaking toward the stranger from all directions. And the mysterious newcomer moved. Ahsoka froze in astonishment as the human became a blur of motion, dodging blaster fire with impossible speed. He weaved between the energy bolts as though they traveled in slow motion, his movements fluid and precise. This wasn't force-enhanced speed, it was something entirely different. The stranger's hands formed unfamiliar gestures in rapid succession before he called out words in an unknown language, Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. A burst of smoke erupted around him, clearing to reveal not one but 20 identical copies of the blonde-haired man. Each solid and moving independently. Not holograms, not illusions, perfect physical duplicates that immediately launched into coordinated action against the droid forces. What in the Force? Ahsoka whispered, momentarily stunned by the impossible technique. The duplicates moved with synchronized precision, smashing through battle droids with taijutsu strikes enhanced by song. Energy that glowed faintly blew around their limbs. Several copies formed swirling spheres of energy in their palms, Rasengan. They shouted, before driving these orbs through the chestplates of B-2 super battle droids. shredding metal like tissue paper. Ahsoka shook off her surprise and entered the fray, lightsabers deflecting blaster bolts back at their sources. She cut down 3 droids in quick succession, working her way toward the stranger at the center of the chaos. One of the duplicates noticed her approach, eyes widening at the sight of her energy blades. He called out to what she presumed was the original, gesturing toward her with a stream of unfamiliar words. The original nodded, seemingly unconcerned by her different appearance or weapons. Instead, he adjusted his strategy to complement her movements, his duplicates creating openings for her lightsaber strikes while she deflected blaster fire that would have hit them. Despite never having fought together before, they fell into an instinctive rhythm. Ahsoka ducked beneath the super battle droid's arm swing, severing it with an upward slash before spinning to block blaster fire aimed at the stranger's back. He responded in kind, one of his duplicates tackling a droid that had flanked her, driving another of those spiraling energy spheres through its command center. Within minutes, the entire droid platoon lay in sparking ruins around them. The duplicates disappeared in puffs of smoke until only the original remained, breathing slightly elevated but otherwise showing no signs of exertion from the intense battle. He turned to face Ahsoka fully, curiosity evident in his expression as he studied her orange skin, white facial markings, and the striped head tails that marked her as Togruta. Yet there was no fear or revulsion in his gaze, only open interest and a hint of admiration for her fighting skills. "Thanks for the assist," Ahsoka said, knowing he wouldn't understand her words but hoping her tone conveyed gratitude. She deactivated one lightsaber and held up her empty hand in a universal gesture of peace. The stranger smiled, a disarmingly bright expression that transformed his entire face, and mimicked her gesture. "Naruto," he said, pointing to himself. "Naruto Uzumaki." "Ahsoka," she replied, pointing to herself. "Ahsoka Tano." Before they could attempt further communication, Ahsoka's comlink chirped urgently. She answered to hear Master Plo Koon's concerned voice. "Ahsoka, report. We detected a massive energy surge followed by concentrated blaster fire. What's your status?" "I'm fine, Master Plo," she responded, keeping her eyes on Naruto. "I've made contact with the visitor. He's not hostile. In fact, he just helped me eliminate an entire platoon of battle droids." "Can he communicate? Does he understand basic?" "Not as far as I can tell. But he's definitely sentient and intelligent. And Master," she hesitated, unsure how to describe what she'd witnessed. "He has abilities I've never seen before. Not like any force techniques I know." "Bring him to the command post," Plo Koon instructed after a moment of silence. "We've received priority orders from the Jedi Council. They sense the disturbance across the galaxy and want this visitor brought to Coruscant immediately." "Understood." Ahsoka ended the transmission and turned back to Naruto, who was examining one of her lightsaber hilts with fascination, careful not to touch it without permission. She gestured for him to follow her, adding a smile she hoped would convey friendly intentions. Naruto nodded, Fa. Ling into step beside her as they began making their way through the jungle toward the Republic lines. As they walked, Ahsoka noticed something odd about how the Force flowed around her new companion. Rather than the normal currents she sensed around living beings, the energy surrounding Naruto seemed to exist simultaneously within and outside the Force, as though he operated on multiple frequencies at once. It wasn't dark side energy, it lacked the cold, consuming quality of that corrupted power. Nor was it typical light side energy, with its serene harmony. This was something more primal, or complete, as though she were witnessing a form of the Force that predated the division between light and dark. What troubled her most was how natural it felt to be near this energy. Rather than disrupting her connection to the Force, Naruto's presence seemed to enhance it, broadening her perception in ways she couldn't quite articulate. Naruto, meanwhile, was taking in his surroundings with undisguised wonder. The massive fungi and bioluminescent plant life clearly fascinated him, though his alert posture indicated he remained aware of potential threats. Occasionally he would glance at her with a thoughtful expression, as though piecing together a complex puzzle. They were halfway to the Republic position when Ahsoka sensed the approaching danger, a cold, malevolent presence in the foe. RCE that made her montrals tingle with warning. "We need to move," she said urgently, gesturing for increased speed. Naruto tensed immediately, picking up on her alarm despite the language barrier. He cocked his head slightly, eyes unfocusing for a moment as though listening to something, or someone, she couldn't hear. The threat materialized moments later as a modified separatist tank burst through the vegetation ahead, its main cannon swiveling toward them with deadly intent. This was no standard separatist vehicle. Its hull gleamed with unfamiliar technology that pulsed with sickly greenish energy. Prototype. Ahsoka realized aloud. This must be the new weapon intelligence warned about. The tank's cannon charged with the same eerie energy, growing in intensity until the air itself seemed to warp around it. Ahsoka raised her lightsabers defensively, though instinct told her that whatever this weapon fired might not be deflectable like normal energy weapons. Before she could shout a warning to take cover, Naruto stepped forward, his expression hardening with determination. His hands formed a complex series of gestures in rapid succession as golden energy began to emanate from his body, not just surrounding him but transforming him. The energy coalesced into a glowing avatar that enveloped his form, manifesting as what appeared to be a massive, nine-tailed fox composed of golden light. The tank fired its weapon, a concentrated beam of energy that distorted space itself as it tore through the air toward them. Naruto thrust his transformed hand forward, golden energy forming a densely compressed shield before them. The two energies collided with catastrophic force. The jungle around them flattened from the shockwave, trees splintering and fungi collapsing. Ahsoka found herself protected within the radius of Naruto's golden energy, watching in awe as he not only stopped the tank's attack but seemed to absorb and redirect it. With a shout in his native tongue, Naruto sent the energy hurtling back toward its source. The redirected beam struck the tank with pinpoint accuracy, causing the vehicle to implode as its own technology collapsed in on itself. The resulting explosion sent a column of emerald fire into the Felucian sky. As the echoes of destruction faded, Naruto's golden transformation receded, the fox-like avatar dissolving until he stood once more in his normal form. He turned to check on Ahsoka, concern evident in his eyes. "I'm okay," she assured him, the words less important than the steady tone and nod that accompanied them. He smiled with relief. Though fatigue showed briefly in his features, whatever that transformation had been, it clearly required significant energy to maintain. Ahsoka's comlink erupted with frantic communications. "Command post to Ahsoka, we detected another massive energy surge. All units be advised, unknown weapon signature neutralized. Ahsoka, report, are you injured?" She raised the device. "I'm unharmed, Master Plo. The visitor, Naruto, just saved us from what appeared to be a prototype separatist weapon. I've never seen anything like what either of them just did." Silence greeted her report for several seconds before Plo Koon responded, his normally composed voice tinged with urgency. "The Council's orders have been upgraded to highest priority. Bring him directly to the evacuation point. He resolute is diverting from its current mission to transport you both to Coruscant immediately." "That's serious?" Ahsoka questioned. Master Yoda himself felt the energy discharge from across the galaxy, Plo replied. Whoever your new friend is, he's created the largest disturbance in the Force recorded in centuries." Ahsoka glanced at Naruto, who waited patiently despite not understanding the conversation. The implications of Plo's words settled uncomfortably in her mind. Such interest from the Jedi Council could be as much a danger to Naruto as protection. And if Palpatine and the Senate became involved? "Understood," she said finally. "We're on our way." She gestured for Naruto to follow once more, and they resumed their journey through the devastated jungle. This time, however, Ahsoka's thoughts raced with possibilities and concerns. Whatever Naruto was, wherever he had come from, his arrival seemed to herald something momentous. The Force itself felt different in his presence, more complete, less divided. As they approached the Republic lines, clone troopers raised their weapons uncertainly at the sight of the unusual pair. Ahsoka raised her hand in a calming gesture. "He's with me. Master Plo Koon is expecting us." The clones lowered their blasters but maintained wary postures as Naruto passed. He, in turn, studied them with open curiosity, particularly their identical faces. Master Plo Koon awaited them at the makeshift landing pad where a gunship stood ready for immediate departure. The Keldor Jedi Master's expression was unreadable behind his necessary breathing apparatus. But his Force presence radiated cautious interest as Naruto approached. "Ahsoka, He greeted with a nod before turning his masked face toward Naruto. And you must be our mysterious visitor. Naruto, recognizing the greeting, inclined his head respectfully. Naruto Uzumaki, he repeated, touching his chest. Plo Koon studied him for a long moment before addressing Ahsoka. The energy he emanates, it's like nothing I've encountered in all my years as a Jedi. It resonates with the Force yet exists apart from it somehow. I felt that too, Ahsoka confirmed. When he fought, he created solid duplicates of himself and formed energy constructs with his hands. Then when the tank attacked, he transformed into something else. Something powerful enough to redirect a weapon that warped space itself. The Council will want to know everything, Plo said gravely. This may be connected to the ancient prophecies in ways we don't yet understand. The gunship's engines roared to life, signaling their imminent departure. Plo Koon gestured toward the open doors. We should board. The Resolute is already in orbit awaiting our arrival. Naruto hesitated at the sight of the unfamiliar aircraft, his brow furrowing as he glanced between the gunship and the sky beyond. Ahsoka sensed his uncertainty and stepped closer, offering a reassuring smile. It's okay, she said, pointing to the gunship and then upward. Transport. To help you. After a moment's consideration, Naruto nodded and followed her aboard. As the gunship lifted off, carrying them toward the waiting Star Destroyer, Ahsoka noticed Naruto's white-knuckled grip on the handhold. Apparently interdimensional travel didn't equate to comfort with conventional flight. The Felucian landscape shrank beneath them, the planet's unique ecosystem spreading out in a panorama of bioluminescent color. Naruto's eyes widened at the view, his earlier anxiety giving way to wonder as they ascended through wispy clouds toward the stars beyond. When the massive form of the Resolute came into view, a Republic Venator-class Star Destroyer hanging in orbit like a dagger among the stars, Naruto's expressio N shifted to one of awe tinged with sadness, as though the sight reminded him of something from his own world. The gunship docked in the Resolute's hangar bay with practiced precision. As they disembarked, the organized chaos of a warship in active deployment surrounded them, clone troopers marching in formation, mechanics servicing fighters, officers conferring over tactical displays. Admiral Yularen approached, his crisp uniform and rigid posture contrasting with the controlled disorder around him. Master Plo, Ahsoka, he greeted with a formal nod before his gaze settled on Naruto. This is the individual causing all the commotion, I presume. Admiral Yularen, meet Naruto Uzumaki, Plo Koon introduced. We believe he may have arrived from somewhere beyond our galaxy, though communication has been limited by language barriers. Yularen's skeptical expression made his thoughts clear. Well, the Supreme Chancellor himself has requested updates on this situation. Whatever guest did on Felucia was detected by Republic sensor stations across 3 sectors. The mention of Palpatine's interest sent a subtle ripple of concern through Ahsoka, though she maintained a neutral expression. The Chancellor's growing influence over Jedi affairs had troubled her even before she left the Order. Our priority is to reach Coruscant, Plo Koon stated. The Jedi Council will determine next steps once they've met with Naruto. Very well. We've already plotted the hyperspace route and can depart immediately, Yularen replied before turning to a nearby officer. Prepare for hyperspace jump. As activity around them intensified in preparation for faster-than-light travel, Ahsoka noticed Naruto's gaze fixed on the viewports showing the starfield beyond. His expression held a complexity of emotions, wonder at the unfamiliar surroundings, concern for whatever he'd left behind, and a steely determination that suggested he was already planning his next steps, despite being in a completely alien environment. Let me show you where you'll be staying during the journey, she offered, gesturing for him to follow. As they walked through the corridors of the massive warship, Naruto's observant gaze took in everything: the technology, the clone troopers, the structure of the vessel itself. He moved with the balanced awareness of someone assessing potential threats while remaining open to new information, the habit of a seasoned warrior in unfamiliar territory. Ahsoka led him to guest quarters that, while Spartan, offered basic comforts. Home, she said simply, gesturing to the room. For now. Naruto nodded in understanding, setting down a small pouch he'd carried from his world, one of the few possessions that had made the journey with him. A sudden lurch signaled the Resolute's jump to hyperspace. Naruto steadied himself against a bulkhead, eyes widening as he moved to the small viewport where the stars had transformed into the streaking lights of hyperspace. First time seeing lightspeed? Ahsoka asked, knowing he wouldn't understand the words but recognizing the universal expression of astonishment. Naruto turned to her, his expression transforming from wonder to determination. He pointed to himself, then made a flowing motion with his hands before pointing to her. Then he tapped his temple and repeated the gesture. You want to communicate? Ahsoka guessed. Learn my language. Quote. Naruto nodded enthusiastically. He sat cross-legged on the floor, gesturing for her to do the same. Once she was seated across from him, he extended his hands, palms up, in what appeared to be an invitation. Hesitantly, Ahsoka placed her hands in his. Immediately, she felt a gentle current of that strange energy flow from him, not invasive but questing, like water seeking a channel. What are you doing? She asked, curious rather than alarmed. Naruto closed his eyes in concentration. The energy flowing between them intensified slightly, and Ahsoka felt a peculiar sensation. As though her mind were expanding to include new spaces. Images flashed behind her eyes, memories that weren't hers, concepts in an unfamiliar language, faces of people she'd ever met but suddenly recognized. A pink-haired woman with extraordinary strength, a dark-haired man with red eyes, a masked figure with gravity-defying silver hair. Just as abruptly as it had begun, the connection faded. Naruto opened his eyes, blinking rapidly as he processed whatever he had experienced. Did that? Ahsoka began, unsure what to ask. Work. Naruto finished in perfect, if slightly accented, basic. I think it did, at least partially. I picked up the fundamentals of your language from your mind, hope you don't mind. It's a technique we use for rapid intelligence gathering in my world. Though I've adapted it a bit. Ahsoka stared in astonishment. You can just learn languages by touching people. Naruto rubbed the back of his neck sheepishly. Not usually this effectively, but the energy here, what you call the force, it's connected to what we call chakra in my world. Both seem to be aspects of the same primordial energy, which makes the technique work better than expected. That's incredible, Ahsoka said, genuinely impressed. So you understand everything I'm saying now? Mostly. Some concepts might still be fuzzy, and I might mess up complex terms, but I got the basics, he confirmed. Which is good, because I have about 1,000 questions about where I am and what's happening. That makes two of us, Ahsoka replied with a slight smile. Though, I suspect the Jedi Council will have even more questions when we reach Coruscant. Naruto's expression grew more serious. These Jedi, they're your leaders. Warriors who use this force. They're peacekeepers, or at least they were before the war, Ahsoka explained, a hint of complicated emotions coloring her tone. I was training to become a Jedi Knight before I left the Order. You left your village, your organization? Naruto asked, genuine interest in his eyes. That couldn't have been an easy choice. It wasn't, Ahsoka admitted, surprised at how quickly she felt comfortable discussing this with someone who had been a stranger an hour ago. But I needed to find my own path. Naruto nodded with unexpected understanding. Where I'm from, I'm a shinobi, a ninja, of the Hidden Leaf Village. We also walk a path between warfare and peacekeeping, though the lines often blur. Like they have for the Jedi in this war, Ahsoka observed quietly. War has a way of changing people and institutions, Naruto agreed. His tone suggesting personal experience with such transformations. But enough about that for now. I should tell you what I learned in the ruins before I was brought here. I think it might help explain why I'm in your galaxy. Ahsoka settled into a more comfortable position, sensing this would be a significant conversation. I'm listening. For the next hour, as the Resolute hurtled through hyperspace toward Coruscant, Naruto related his discovery in the Valley of the End and the visions he'd experienced upon touching the crystal. He explained the concept of the primordial sage who had, according to the ancient records, deliberately separated a unified cosmic energy into distinct forms across different dimensions, chakra in his world, the force in hers. The prophecy mentioned someone bearing the mark of the sun who would walk between worlds, Naruto concluded. I've been connected to solar symbolism since birth due to certain circumstances. He hesitated briefly before continuing. And I carry within me both the nine-tailed fox, a being of pure chakra, and the ability to draw on natural energy through Sage mode. If the prophecy is about anyone from my world, I fit the description. The Jedi have a prophecy too, Ahsoka said thoughtfully. About the chosen one who will bring balance to the Force. Many believe it refers to Anakin Skywalker, my former master. But now I wonder if the prophecies are connected somehow. It seems likely, Naruto agreed. Especially considering the timing. My world recently emerged from its own devastating war. And from what I gathered during our fight on Felucia, yours is in the midst of one. The Clone Wars, Ahsoka confirmed. The Republic against the Separatists. It's been raging for years with no end in sight. Before Naruto could respond, a knock at the door interrupted their conversation. A clone trooper stood at attention when Ahsoka opened it. Commander Tano, Master Plo Koon requests your presence on the bridge. We've received a priority communication from the Jedi Temple. Tell him we'll be right there, Ahsoka replied, turning to Naruto. Ready to face more questions. Naruto stood, adjusting his headband with a determined expression. Ready as I'll ever be. Let's see what this galaxy has in store for the next Hokage of the Hidden Leaf Village. As they made their way to the bridge, crew members and clone troopers cast curious glances at the unusual pair, the Togruta former Jedi and the human visitor with strange abilities and whisker-like markings. Naruto met their gaze with open friendliness rather than suspicion, his natural charisma evident even in this alien environment. The bridge of the Resolute buzzed with activity as they entered. Master Plo Koon stood before the holoterminal where the blue-tinged images of several Jedi Masters flickered. Yoda, Mace Windu, and Ki-Adi-Mundi among them. Ah, Padawan Tano, Master Yoda's gravelly voice acknowledged her arrival before his ancient eyes settled on Naruto. And the visitor from beyond, this must be. Masters, this is Naruto Uzumaki, Plo Koon introduced. He has apparently learned basic during our journey and may now be able to answer your questions directly. Surprise rippled through the assembled Jedi Masters, though they maintained composed exteriors. That's quite a feat, Mace Windu noted, his penetrating gaze assessing Naruto. We have many questions about your arrival and the disturbance it created in the Force. Naruto stepped forward, meeting the Jedi's gaze with respectful confidence. I understand, and I'll answer what I can. I believe my presence here is connected to ancient prophecies involving both our worlds. Master Yoda's ears perked up at this. Prophecies, you say? Tell us more, you must. As Naruto began explaining what he had discovered about the Primordial Sage and the division of the original cosmic energy, Ahsoka observed the Jedi Master's reactions. They maintained their typical stoic expressions, but she could sense their growing concern and interest through the Force. Troubling. This is, Yoda commented when Naruto finished. Ancient texts in our most secure vaults. Similar stories they tell, of a time before the Jedi, before the division of the Force. The Wills spoke of, the one before the divide, in their earliest writings, Ki-Adi-Mundi added. Most considered it metaphorical rather than historical. This energy you call chakra, Mace Windu interjected, you demonstrated its use on Felucia according to Ahsoka's report. How does it differ from the Force as we understand it? From what I can tell, Naruto replied thoughtfully, chakra combines physical and spiritual energies within the body, while your Force seems to flow through all living things from outside. But they're two aspects of the same primordial energy, like two rivers flowing from the same mountain but taking different paths. The Jedi Masters exchanged significant glances at this explanation. When you arrive on Coruscant, Yoda decided, meet with the full council, you must discuss these matters in greater depth, we will. His ancient eyes narrowed slightly. But caution, I advise. To the Chancellor, report this not, until understand more, we do. Understood, Master Yoda, Plo Koon acknowledged. As the hologram flickered out, Admiral Yularen approached with a concerned expression. Master Jedi, I must remind you that regulations require me to report all unusual encounters to Republic Command, which ultimately means the Chancellor's office. Of course, Admiral, Plo Koon replied smoothly, but perhaps your report could focus on the Separatist prototype weapon rather than our guest. After all, that represents the more immediate tactical concern. Yularen considered this for a moment before nodding stiffly. I suppose that arrangement satisfies the letter of regulations. Very well. As the Admiral returned to his duties, Naruto glanced questioningly at Ahsoka. The Chancellor, he's your political leader. Why the caution? Ahsoka hesitated, aware of the politically sensitive nature of her personal concerns about Palpatine. It's complicated. Chancellor Palpatine has been accumulating extraordinary powers during the war. Some worry about the long-term implications for democracy. Ah, Naruto nodded with understanding. We've seen similar patterns. Leaders who consolidate power during crises often have difficulty relinquishing it afterward. Precisely, Plo Koon agreed, joining their conversation. And given the nature of your abilities and their connection to ancient prophecies, it seems prudent to proceed with discretion. The ship's intercom announced their imminent arrival at Coruscant, interrupting further discussion. Naruto moved to the viewport as the Resolute reverted to real space, revealing the planet-wide cityscape of the Republic capital. His breath caught audibly at the sight. An entire world, covered in buildings. Coruscant, Ahsoka confirmed. The heart of the Republic. Home to over 1 trillion beings from across the galaxy. Naruto stared in wonder as they descended toward the planet's surface. The massive superstructures of the upper levels gleamed in the sunlight, airspeeder traffic flowing between them in organized chaos. It's beautiful, he said finally. And overwhelming. My entire village could fit inside one of those buildings. As the Resolute settled into orbit, a smaller shuttle prepared to transport them to the surface. Ahsoka, Naruto, and Master Plo Koon boarded the craft for the final leg of their journey to the Jedi Temple. During the descent, Naruto remained glued to the viewports, taking in the vertiginous drop through layers of city that extended kilometers deep. His expression shifted between wonder and sadness, perhaps thinking of the world and people he'd left behind. We'll find a way to get you home, Ahsoka said quietly, sensing his thoughts. If the energy brought you here, there must be a way to reverse the process. Naruto turned to her with a grateful smile. Thank you, though I'm beginning to wonder if returning immediately would be the right choice. The prophecy mentioned restoring balance. That suggests a task to be completed here first. The Force works in mysterious ways, Plo Koon commented. Perhaps your arrival, while unexpected, is precisely what both our worlds need at this moment. The shuttle banked toward the distinctive silhouette of the Jedi Temple, its 5 spires rising majestically above the surrounding cityscape. As they approached the landing platform, Ahsoka noticed a welcoming committee awaiting them, not just Jedi Masters, but a contingent of Senate guards as well. That's odd, she murmured. 8 guards don't usually greet arrivals at the temple. Plo Koon's posture stiffened slightly. It appears news of our guest has reached political circles despite our precautions. As the shuttle TT led onto the landing pad and its ramp extended, Naruto squared his shoulders and adjusted his headband, a gesture Ahsoka was beginning to recognize as his preparation for facing challenges. Whatever comes, he said with quiet determination, I've faced worse odds before. My ninja way is never to give up and never to go back on my word. If I'm meant to help bring balance to your world, then that's what I'll do. The confidence in his voice wasn't bravado or naivety. It was the earned certainty of someone who had overcome impossible situations through sheer determination and an unbreakable spirit. In that moment, despite having known him for less than a day, Ahsoka believed him completely. Well, she replied with a small smile, the Force may have brought you here, but I have a feeling you're going to change its currents in ways no one expects. Together, they descended the ramp to face whatever awaited them on Coruscant, the first steps in a journey that would reshape the destiny of 2 worlds. Chapter 1 and Chapter 2, The Stranger Among Stars. The Jedi Temple stretched toward Coruscant's sky, its 5 spires piercing the clouds like ancient sentinels. Naruto studied the massive structure as they approached, noting the weathered stone and timeless architecture that reminded him, surprisingly, of the Hokage monument back home. There was something comfortingly familiar about a civilization that built monuments meant to endure centuries. The temple has stood for over 4,000 years, Ahsoka explained, noticing his interest. It was built over an ancient Force nexus, a place where the energy of the Force naturally concentrates. We have similar places, Naruto replied. Areas where natural energy gathers more densely. Sage practitioners seek them out for training. As their shuttle settled on the landing platform, Naruto counted 12 figures waiting to receive them. 8 Jedi in traditional robes, and 4 guards in blue uniforms with ceremonial helmets that concealed their faces entirely. Senate guards, Ahsoka murmured, her tone conveying concern. Someone in the government wants to make their presence known. Master Plo Koon's posture stiffened marginally. Remember, Naruto, the Jedi Council acts independently of the Republic government, though we serve the Republic's interests. The distinction may seem subtle but is critically important. Naruto nodded, understanding political complexity all too well from his experiences with the daimyo and village leadership back home. I'll be careful what I say and to whom. The shuttle's ramp extended with a pneumatic hiss, and Naruto followed Ahsoka and Master Plo into the cool morning air of Coruscant. The atmospheric difference struck him immediately, processed air carrying the subtle metallic tang of a world-spanning metropolis. So different from the forest-scented breezes of Konoha. At the head of the welcoming party stood a diminutive green figure that barely reached Naruto's waist. Despite his small stature, the ancient Jedi Master radiated such powerful presence that Naruto instinctively knew this was Yoda, whom he'd seen via hologram on the Resolute. Beside Yoda stood a tall human with dark skin and austere features, Master Windu, Naruto recalled. The remaining Jedi represented diverse species, some with physiologies Naruto had never imagined possible. Master Yoda, Plo Koon bowed respectfully. We have arrived with our guest as requested. Yoda's large, expressive eyes studied Naruto with the penetrating wisdom of centuries. Welcome to the Jedi Temple, young Uzumaki. Long journey, you have had. Thank you for your hospitality, Naruto replied with a formal bow that would have made Iruka-sensei proud. I'm grateful for the assistance in these unexpected circumstances. A subtle ripple of surprise passed through the assembled Jedi at his fluent response. Mace Windu stepped forward, his expression guarded but not hostile. Your quick acquisition of our language is impressive, he stated. Master Plo informed us you learned basic during your journey here. Naruto nodded, deciding honesty was the best approach. I used a technique from my world. Chi allows for the transfer of knowledge through chakra. Ahsoka was kind enough to assist me. Before Windu could respond, one of the Senate guards stepped forward. Chancellor Palpatine sends his Riga RDS an interest in meeting our interstellar visitor. The Senate Diplomatic Committee requests a briefing at your earliest convenience. Appreciate the Chancellor's interest. We do, Yoda replied smoothly. But first, the Jedi Council must ascertain the nature of this situation. A matter of security, it is. The guard's posture suggested dissatisfaction with this response, but he merely inclined his helmeted head. I shall inform the Chancellor of the delay. He will expect updates, and he shall have them, when appropriate information is available to share, Windu added firmly. With the political formalities addressed, Yoda turned back to Naruto. Come, much to discuss, we have. The group moved into the temple, the Senate guards remaining outside. As they proceeded through soaring hallways and past meditation gardens, Naruto absorbed every detail. Young Jedi learners, Padawans, Ahsoka had called them, paused in their activities to watch the procession with undisguised curiosity. They sense your unique energy signature, a new voice explained. Naruto turned to find a Togruta Jedi Master had fallen into step beside him. Unlike Ahsoka's orange skin, hers was a rich red, with or elaborate white facial markings and longer montrals. She carried herself with a serene dignity that reminded Naruto of Neji at his most composed. Master Shaak, she introduced herself with a slight inclination of her head. I apologize for the scrutiny, but you must understand that your arrival has created quite a disturbance in the Force. I'm starting to understand that, Naruto replied, returning her greeting. Where I'm from, I'm somewhat used to causing disturbances. A flicker of amusement crossed her otherwise serene features. Somehow that doesn't surprise me, Naruto Uzumaki. Their procession reached a turbolift that carried them upward to one of the temple spires. When the doors opened, they entered a circular chamber with 12 chairs arranged in a perfect ring. Windows surrounded the entire room, offering a panoramic view of Coruscant stretching to the horizon. The High Council chamber, Ahsoka whispered to Naruto. This is where the Jedi Masters make their most important decisions. The Jedi took their places in the circle of chairs, while Naruto was directed to stand in the center. Ahsoka remained near the entrance, technically not part of the formal proceedings since she had left the order. Master Yoda settled into his seat and regarded Naruto with thoughtful eyes. Begin, we shall. Tell us of your world and how you came to be here, young Uzumaki. For the next hour, Naruto recounted his experiences, from the discovery of the ancient chamber beneath the Valley of the End to his arrival on Felucia. He explained the concept of chakra, the shinobi system, and what little he had learned about the primordial sage from the ruins. The council listened attentively, interrupting only occasionally with clarifying questions. This energy you call chakra. A serene Jedi with an elongated cranium, Ki-Adi Mundi, Naruto recalled, asked. You say it combines physical and spiritual energy within the body. Yes, Naruto confirmed. Every living being, in my world has chakra pathways, a system similar to blood vessels but carrying energy instead. Through training, we learn to mold and shape this energy for various techniques. Fascinating, murmur, Ed, a female Jedi whose name Naruto hadn't caught. The Force flows around and through all living things, but we do not typically conceptualize it as flowing through specific pathways within the body. Perhaps a demonstration would be instructive, suggested Master Windu, his tone indicating both curiosity and caution. Naruto nodded. I can show you a basic technique that might help illustrate the difference. He raised his hands into a familiar cross-shaped seal. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. With a puff of smoke, 3 perfect duplicates of Naruto appeared beside him in the center of the chamber. Unlike illusions, these shadow clones were solid, autonomous entities that immediately bowed respectfully to the council. A murmur of surprise rippled through the assembled masters. Naruto could sense them extending their awareness through the Force, examining his clones with their heightened perceptions. These are not illusions, Shaak observed, rising from her seat to approach the nearest clone. She circled it slowly, studying it from all angles. They have physical form and presence in the Force. Shadow clone technique, Naruto explained as he dispelled the clones with a gesture. It creates actual duplicates, not just images. Each has a portion of my chakra and can think and act independently. Such a technique would be invaluable in numerous situations, Ki-Adi Mundi noted. Can all shinobi from your world perform this? No, Naruto shook his head. It requires large chakra reserves. Most shinobi would be exhausted creating even one clone with this technique. Yet you created 3 with apparent ease. Mace Windu observed, his tone suggesting he recognized Naruto was downplaying his capabilities. Naruto smiled sheepishly. I have unusually large chakra reserves. In combat situations, I can create hundreds of shadow clones if necessary. This revelation caused visible reactions among the council members. Raised eyebrows, leaning forward in seats, exchanged glances. And other abilities you possess, Yoda prompted. Many, Naruto acknowledged. Combat techniques, sensory abilities, nature transformation. Nature transformation, asked a Keldor Jedi. Changing chakra's properties to embody elemental forces, wind, fire, water, earth, lightning. Naruto extended his hand, focusing chakra to his palm where it began to spin and condense. Th is as the Rasengan, a technique that combines shape and nature transformation. The swirling sphere of chakra illuminated the chamber with its blue-white glow, casting shifting patterns across the faces of the watching Jedi. Naruto maintained it for several seconds before allowing it to dissipate. Impressive control, Shaak commented. I sense no wasted energy in your technique. Years of practice, Naruto replied with a modest smile. My father created this jutsu, though I've since modified it in various ways. Yoda's ears perked up at this. Your father, a powerful warrior he was. Minato Namikaze, Naruto confirmed, a hint of pride coloring his voice. The 4th Hokage, leader of our village. He was known as the Yellow Flash for his speed and space-time techniques. And your mother? Shaak inquired, her interest seemingly piqued by the mention of Naruto's heritage. Kushina Uzumaki, of the Uzumaki clan, known for their sealing techniques and life force. A flash of old pain crossed Naruto's features. They both died the day I was born, protecting our village from a tailed beast attack. Naruto sensed Ahsoka's sympathy from across the chamber but continued before the conversation could turn too personal. The point is, chakra in my world and the force in yours seem to be different expressions of the same primordial energy. The ancient chamber I discovered suggested that this division was intentional, created by the being referred to as the Primordial Sage. Correlate. This does, with our oldest records, Yoda confirmed, tapping his Geimer stick thoughtfully against the floor. The Journal of the Wills, speak of this, it does. Before Jedi, before Sith, existed the one who understood true balance. The Wills texts are fragmentary at best, Windu cautioned. Most scholars consider them allegorical rather than historical. Perhaps, Adi Mundi suggested, they are both. Great truths often survive as myth when direct knowledge is lost. The UNCIL fell into scholarly debate about ancient texts and prophecies. Naruto listened attentively, noting how these Jedi masters, despite their obvious power, valued knowledge and careful consideration. In this, they reminded him of the best aspects of Konoha's leadership. Eventually, Master Yoda raised a three-fingered hand, quieting the discussion. Meditate on these revelations, we must. But first, practical matters we should address. He turned his ancient gaze to Naruto. A guest of the Jedi Order, you are. Quarters within the temple, we can provide. Thank you, Naruto replied with a bow. I appreciate your hospitality. Additionally, Yoda continued, a guide you will need. Someone to help you understand our world, while we investigate this connection further. Shaak rose from her seat. With the council's permission, I would volunteer for this assignment. My current duties at the temple would allow me to remain available while assisting our guest. Naruto noticed a sub-TLE exchange of glances among the council members, suggesting this had been discussed before his arrival. Agree, the council does, Yoda nodded. Master Shaak will serve as your liaison, Naruto Uzumaki. Questions you have, to her you may direct them. I'm honored, Naruto responded, inclining his head toward Shaak. I hope I won't disrupt your duties too much, Master Jedi. Consider it an opportunity for mutual learning. She replied with serene composure, though Naruto detected genuine interest beneath her formal exterior. As the council session concluded, Ahsoka approached Naruto. That went better than I expected, she murmured. They seem cautious but fair, Naruto observed quietly. The council has its moments, Ahsoka replied with a hint of complicated history in her tone. Master Shaak is a good match for you, though. She's one of the more open-minded masters, despite her traditional appearance. Before Naruto could respond, Shaak joined them. Ahsoka Tano, she greeted warmly. It's good to see you back in the temple, however brief the visit may be. Master T, Ahsoka returned with respectful familiarity. I was just telling Naruto he's in good hands. I shall endeavor to prove you right, Shaak replied before turning to Naruto. If you're ready, I can show you to your quarters and perhaps provide a tour of the temple afterward. Naruto glanced at Ahsoka, realizing they might be parting ways. Will you be staying? For a while, she confirmed. I have my own quarters in the city, but I'll remain on Coruscant for now. There's clearly more to your arrival than coincidence, and I want to see where this leads. Relief flooded through him at not losing his first friend in this strange new world. I'd like that. Then I shall expect to see you again soon, Shaak said to Ahsoka before gesturing for Naruto to follow her. Come, Naruto Uzumaki, let me introduce you to your temporary home. As they departed the council chamber, Naruto cast one last glance back at the panoramic view of Coruscant, a world of endless buildings stretching to the horizon, so unlike the forests and mountains of his home. Yet despite the alien landscape, he felt a growing sense of purpose. Whatever had brought him here, he would face it with the same determination that had carried him through every previous challenge. Shaak led Naruto out the labyrinthine corridors of the Jedi Temple with unhurried grace. Unlike many of the other Jedi they passed, who regarded Naruto with undisguised curiosity, she maintained a composed exterior that revealed little of her thoughts. The temple houses thousands of Jedi, she explained as they walked. From the youngest initiates to the most venerable masters. Before the war, most were scattered across the galaxy on various missions. Now, many have been called back to serve as generals in the Republic Army. Your people are warriors and peacekeepers at once, Naruto observed. It's a difficult balance to maintain. Shaak's stride faltered almost imperceptibly. Indeed, many believe the war has pushed us too far toward the former at the expense of the latter. She glanced at him with renewed interest. You speak from experience. My world has known war too, Naruto acknowledged. The Fourth Great Ninja War ended only 6 months ago by my reckoning. It united the shinobi villages against a common threat. But at tremendous cost, and you played a significant role, I sense. Naruto hesitated, uncomfortable with boasting but unwilling to lie. I was on the front lines, yes. Something in his tone must have communicated the understatement, for Shaak studied him with heightened attention. I begin to understand why the Force has brought you here, Naruto Uzumaki. War leaves marks not visible to the eye, wisdom that cannot be taught, only earned. They arrived at a simple door in a quiet hallway. Shaak waved her hand over the control panel, and the door slid up. To reveal modest but comfortable quarters, a sleeping area, small sitting space, and hygiene facilities. These will be your rooms during your stay, she said. They are connected to the temple's central systems, which can provide food, information, and basic necessities. Naruto entered, taking in the unfamiliar technology with interest. The room was sparse by civilian standards but reminded him pleasantly of his own apartment in Konoha, functional, clean, with just enough personality to feel welcoming. Thank you, he said sincerely. This is more than adequate. Shaak gestured to a panel on the wall. This terminal can access the temple archives, public sections only, but enough to help you understand our galaxy, history, and current situation. I've taken the liberty of having appropriate clothing delivered as well. She indicated a neatly folded stack of garments on a shelf, simple tunics and pants in subdued colors similar to what many Jedi wore, though without the distinctive robes. Naruto appreciated the thoughtfulness. His own clothing, while durable, was designed for his world's climate and would make him stand out even more here. I'm in your debt, Master T.S. Hawk tea is sufficient when we're not in formal settings, she replied with the faintest suggestion of a smile. And there is no debt between allies seeking understanding. A chime sounded, and Shaak T touched a communication device at her belt. Yes, Master Windu. The Chancellor has requested an immediate update on our visitor. Mace Windu's voice came through clearly. The Council will convene in 30 minutes to discuss our response. Understood. I shall attend. She ended the communication and turned back to Naruto. It seems our tour will have to wait. Politics moves quickly on Coruscant, especially when something, or someone, unexpected appears. This Chancellor seems very interested in my arrival, Naruto observed carefully. Shaak T's expression remained neutral, but her eyes conveyed caution. Chancellor Palpatine has held office far longer than constitutional limits normally allow, a state of emergency due to the war. He has shown particular interest in Jedi affairs recently. Despite the traditional separation between the Order and the Senate. I understand political complications, Naruto assured her. I won't make things more difficult for you. I appreciate that, she replied. Rest, explore your quarters, and use the information terminal. I'll return once the council session concludes. After Shaak T departed, Naruto sat cross-legged on the floor and closed his eyes. Dropping into a meditative state, his mind reached inward, to the familiar presence always with him. This place is strange, Kurama rumbled, the Nine-Tails voice resonating through their shared mindscape. The energy here, it's familiar yet different. Like hearing an echo of a voice you once knew well. You've been unusually quiet since we arrived, Naruto observed. I've been observing, the fox replied. These Jedi claim to serve the light, yet I sense darkness growing around them. Their connection to this force is limited, fragmented. They've forgotten what true balance means. Like our world forgot the true nature of chakra over time, Naruto mused. Exactly. Both worlds suffer from artificial division. In your world, humans entailed beasts. Here, this rigid dichotomy between light and dark. Kurama's nine tails swished thoughtfully. The primordial sage sought to protect both dimensions by separating them, but perhaps that solution has reached its limit. You think that's why I'm here? To somehow restore communication between the worlds? Or something more fundamental, Kurama suggested. The prophecy spoke of balance. Not light conquering dark, nor dark extinguishing light, but true balance. Naruto pondered this as he opened his eyes, returning to full awareness of his surroundings. The concept resonated with his own journey, finding harmony with Kurama rather than domination or submission, understanding that true strength came from cooperation rather than control. He rose and moved to the information terminal, activating it as Shaak Ti had shown him. The screen illuminated with the Jedi Order's symbol before transitioning to a menu of available information. Naruto selected Current Galactic Situation, and began reading about the Clone Wars, its origins, major battles, and political implications. The hours passed as he absorbed information about this new galaxy, the Republic and its structure, the Separatist Alliance and its leadership, the Clone Army and its sudden appearance, the Jedi Order and its strained relationship with its peacekeeping traditions. The more he learned, the more parallels he saw to conflicts in his own world, cycles of violence perpetuated by misunderstandings, manipulation, and fear. A knock at his door interrupted his studies. Expecting Shaak Ti, he was surprised to find Ahsoka waiting when he opened it. "Thought you might want some company," she said with a smile. "And maybe some food that isn't temple rations." She held up a container that emitted enticing aromas completely unfamiliar to Naruto. His stomach growled in response, reminding him how long it had been since he'd eaten. "That smells amazing," he admitted, stepping aside to let her enter. "Dex's Diner," Ahsoka explained, setting the container on the small table and opening it to reveal an assortment of colorful foods. "Best non-fancy food on Coruscant. I figured after a day like today, you could use something substantial." Naruto grinned appreciatively. "You figured right. Thank you." As they shared the meal, Ahsoka explained each dish: Prototo wedges, Nerf sliders, and something called a Shota Club sandwich tea. Had reminded Naruto distantly of Ichiraku's cooking despite the entirely different ingredients. "So," Ahsoka said between bites, "what do you think of the temple so far?" "Impressive," Naruto replied honestly. "The architecture, the history, the sense of purpose, it reminds me of home in some ways. Though much more formal than I'm used to." Ahsoka laughed. "The Jedi do love their ceremonies and protocols. It's part of why I struggled sometimes." Her expression grew more thoughtful. "But there's wisdom in their traditions too, even if I needed to find my own path." "Master T seems to balance tradition and adaptability well," Naruto observed. "She does," Ahsoka agreed. "Shaak Ti is one of the most respected masters in the Order. She's a member of the Council, a brilliant strategist, and an exceptional lightsaber duelist. But she's also compassionate in ways some other masters aren't." "I sense that," Naruto said. "Beneath the formal exterior, there's a genuine desire to understand, not just judge." Ahsoka studied him with renewed interest. "You're pretty perceptive for someone who just arrived in our galaxy." Naruto shrugged. "People are people, regardless of which dimension they're from. We all want similar things: safety, purpose, connection." "Speaking of connection," Ahsoka said, leaning forward, "the council was in session for hours after you left. Word is that you're deeply divided about what your arrival means and how to handle the Chancellor's interest in you." "Politics," Naruto sighed. "Some things really are universal." Their conversation was interrupted by another knock. This time, it was Shaak Ti who entered, her serene expression slightly strained around the edges, the Jedi equivalent, Naruto guessed, of extreme frustration. "Ahsoka," she nodded in greeting before turning to Naruto. "I apologize for the delay. Council deliberations were extended." "Political complications?" Naruto asked sympathetically. "Indeed." Shaak Ti seated herself gracefully. "Chancellor Palpatine has requested a personal audience with you tomorrow. The Council could find no legitimate reason to refuse, given your non-Jedi status." "I understand," Naruto said. "I'll be careful what I share. The situation is delicate," Shaak Ti explained, her tone measured. "The Chancellor has been a supporter of the Jedi Order throughout the war, yet his increasing interest in our affairs concerns many masters. Your arrival, with abilities outside our understanding of the Force, adds a new dimension to already complex politics. Whatever happens," Ahsoka added, "don't underestimate Palpatine. He's survived as Chancellor this long because he's a master strategist and politician." Naruto nodded, appreciating their candor. "In my world, I've dealt with daimyo, village elders, and even other kage. I won't reveal anything that might compromise your position or security." Shaak Ti's posture relaxed marginally. "Thank you for understanding. Now, on a more immediate note, Master Yoda has requested your presence in the training halls tomorrow morning. He wishes to observe your abilities more directly, in a controlled environment. Naruto's eyebrows rose in surprise. The Grand Master wants to see me train. Master Yoda personally instructs the youngest Jedi initiates, Ahsoka explained. He has a particular interest in unconventional approaches to the Force. I'm honored, Naruto replied sincerely. Though I should warn you, some of my techniques can be destructive. I wouldn't want to damage your facilities. The training halls are designed to withstand considerable force, Shaak assured him with what might have been the ghost of amusement. Though perhaps we should avoid your most catastrophic abilities. The conversation shifted to Lee Ghther topics as they finished the meal Ahsoka had brought. Naruto found himself relaxing in their company, the strangeness of his situation temporarily forgotten as they shared stories and occasional laughter. Shaak, though more reserved than Ahsoka, revealed a subtle wit and thoughtfulness that made her excellent company. As the temple's lighting dimmed to simulate evening, Ahsoka rose to depart. I should head back to my apartment. Early start tomorrow. I'm consulting with Master Plo on a military operation. Will I see you again before you leave? Naruto asked. Count on it, she assured him with a smile. I want to hear how your meeting with the Chancellor goes. And maybe see some more of those impressive techniques of yours. After Ahsoka left, Shaak lingered a moment longer. I sense you have questions that you were hesitant to ask in front of the council, she observed. Naruto appreciated her perceptiveness. Several, actually. The council mentioned prophecies about bringing balance to the Force. What exactly does that mean to the Jedi? Shaak considered the question thoughtfully. Traditionally, it has been interpreted as the destruction of the Sith, users of the dark side of the Force. But in recent years, some masters have begun to question this interpretation. Because balance wouldn't logically mean the elimination of one side, Naruto suggested. Precisely, Shaak confirmed, studying him with increased interest. The Force itself encompasses both aspects, creation and destruction, peace and passion. Yet for 1,000 generations, the Jedi They taught that the dark side is corruption, not complement. In my world, we faced a similar misconception, Naruto explained. The tailed beasts, like Kurama within me, were seen only as destructive forces to be contained and controlled. But I learned they were sentient beings with their own wisdom and purpose. True harmony came not from suppression but from partnership and mutual respect. Shish. Aak's eyes widened slightly at this insight. A provocative perspective, one that would challenge millennia of Jedi doctrine. I don't mean to question your traditions, Naruto said quickly. Just sharing my experience. No need for concern, she assured him. Questioning is the path to wisdom, provided it's done with respect and openness to truth. She rose gracefully. Rest well, Naruto Uzumaki. Tomorrow promises to be eventful. After Shaak departed, Naruto spent time exploring the unfamiliar features of his quarters, the sonic shower that cleaned without water, the food syntheses that produced nutritious if bland meals, the environmental controls that adjusted temperature and lighting to preference. Finally, he settled onto the sleeping mat and closed his eyes, reaching with his senses as he'd done during sage training. The temple around him pulsed with energy, thousands of force-sensitive individuals creating a tapestry of light that reminded him of Konoha's collective will of fire. Yet beneath this radiance, he sensed shadow, not malevolence necessarily, but imbalance, a system straining under pressure it was never designed to bear. They sense it too, Kurama observed within their shared consciousness. The wiser ones, at least. The Grand Master, the Togruta female, they know something is wrong but can't identify the cause. Because they've never experienced true balance, Naruto suggested. Only the limited perspective their tradition allows. Perhaps that's why you're here, the fox rumbled thoughtfully. Not to choose a side in their conflict, to show them there's another way entirely. With that profound possibility echoing in his mind, Naruto drifted into sleep, his dreams filled with images of two worlds, separated by design but connected by destiny. Dawn arrived on Coruscant not with the natural glow of sunrise but with the programmed brightening of artificial lighting across the city planet's upper levels. Naruto, accustomed to waking with first light, found himself alert as the temple's systems gradually illuminated his quarters. After a quick morning routine and a light meal from the synthesizer, he changed into the cloth he's provided. Simple tunic and pants in muted blue that allowed free movement while blending with the temple's aesthetic. He kept his forehead protector with the hidden leaf symbol, however, tying it in its customary position, a reminder of home and his identity. A soft chime announced Shaak his arrival. When the door slid open, she stood waiting in her typical composed posture, though her eyes showed approval of his adapted appearance. "Good morning, Naruto," she greeted. "I trust you rested well." "Better than expected," he replied honestly. "Something about this temple, the energy feels stable. Despite everything happening outside, the temple was built to be a sanctuary," Shaak explained as they began walking. "Not just physically, but spiritually. The ancient architects incorporated Force-attuned crystals into the very foundation, creating a harmony that persists even in turbulent times." They proceeded through corridors beginning to fill with Jedi going about their morning activities. Young Padawans bowed respectfully as Master T passed, while casting curious glances at Naruto. Unlike yesterday's bewilderment, today's looks carried more curiosity than alarm. Word of his friendly nature had apparently spread. "The younglings are always first to accept change," Shaak observed with subtle warmth. "A quality we masters would do well to remember." Their path took them deeper into the temple, down several levels to a vast chamber with a high ceiling and resilient flooring. Training equipment of various designs lined the walls, while the central space remained open for sparring and exercises. Master Yoda awaited them, perched on a small observation platform. Beside him stood Mace Windu, his stern expression suggesting this would be more than a casual demonstration. "Naruto Uzumaki," Yoda greeted, his large eyes bright with interest. "Ready to share your skills, are you?" "I am, Master Yoda," Naruto replied with a respectful bow. "Though I should mention that my more powerful techniques might be too destructive for indoor use." "Noted. This is," Yoda nodded. "Begin with fundamentals, we shall. Master T, assist in this demonstration, would you?" Shaak moved to the center of the training floor, gracefully removing her outer robe to reveal the more fitted tunic and leggings beneath. With a gesture almost too subtle to perceive, she called her lightsaber from her belt to her hand, though she did not ignite it. "Perhaps," she suggested, "we could begin with a simple exchange, movement and awareness only, no techniques or weapons." Naruto understood her intent, an assessment of his basic capabilities without escalation. He nodded and moved to stand opposite her, settling into a relaxed ready stance that concealed its martial purpose beneath apparent casualness, a shinobi's deception. "Whenever you're ready, Master T." For several heartbeats, neither moved. Then, with no perceptible signal, Shaak launched forward with astonishing speed. Her movements flowed like water, each step precise yet unpredictable. She aimed an open palm strike toward Naruto's center, a test rather than a serious attack. Naruto shifted slightly, allowing the strike to pass within millimeters of his chest without making contact. He responded with a sweep that similarly missed by design, establishing the parameters of their exchange, control and precision rather than power. What followed resembled a dance more than combat, two masters of movement exploring each other's capabilities through near misses and pulled strikes. Shaak incorporated elements of Jedi lightsaber forms even without her weapon, her motions elegant and economical. Naruto responded with the fluid adaptability of shinobi taijutsu, his style less formal but equally effective. From the observation platform, Yoda watched with evident fascination, while Windu's stern expression gradually gave way to professional interest. The exchange continued for several minutes, the pace incrementally increasing as both participants gained confidence in the other's control. Finally, Shaak executed a flawless aerial maneuver that would have placed her behind Naruto, except he was no longer there. Using the body flicker technique, he had moved to the opposite side of the training floor in an instant, leaving only a swirl of displaced air. "Impressive speed," Windu commented, breaking his silence. "Without force enhancement." "Not exactly," Naruto corrected politely. "I used chakra to enhance my movement, similar to how Jedi use the Force, but with a different application." "Show us more, you should," Yoda encouraged. "Your unique abilities." Naruto nodded and created 3 shadow clones, each settling into different stances. "In my world, shinobi typically specialize in different types of techniques: ninjutsu, which manipulates chakra for various effects; taijutsu, physical combat; genjutsu, illusion, and various specialized arts. And your specialty? Shaak Ti inquired, returning to stand beside the Jedi Masters. I'm primarily a ninjutsu type, Naruto explained, though I've worked to balance my capabilities. My particular strengths are shadow clones, as you've seen, and wind nature transformation. To demonstrate, he had one clone form a Rasengan while he himself infused it with wind chakra. The sphere transformed, expanding and taking on a Shu Riken-like appearance as it emitted a high-pitched keening noise. Wind release. Rasenshuriken, he named the technique. It attacks at the cellular level, severing chakra pathways, or in your terms, it would disrupt a being's connection to the Force. I wouldn't use it against a living opponent except in the most dire circumstances. He allowed the technique to dissipate before it could cause damage. But even the brief demonstration had left visible distortions in the air where it had existed. Dangerous. Such power is, Yoda observed gravely. Yet control, you maintain. Power isn't inherently good or evil, Naruto replied. It's the intent and application that matters. A perspective shared by the Jedi, Shaak Ti noted with approval. Though some would argue certain powers inherently corrupt their wielders. Like your dark side, Naruto asked. Precisely, Windu confirmed, his expression intensifying. Have you encountered such corrupting forces in your world? Naruto considered the question carefully. We have techniques forbidden because of their nature, those that sacrifice others for power, or twist natural laws beyond acceptable limits. But our understanding is that the technique itself isn't dark, it's the willingness to harm others for personal gain that corrupts. This perspective clearly intrigued the Jedi Masters, though Windu seemed less convinced than Yoda and Shaak Ti. Another demonstration, perhaps, Yoda suggested. Your awareness of living energy, similar to Force sense, it may be. Naruto nodded and settled into a cross-legged position on the floor. He closed his eyes, gathering natural energy until the orange pigmentation appeared around his eyes. When he opened them, his pupils had transformed to horizontal bars, the mark of perfect sage mode. In this state, he explained, I can sense natural energy across great distances. Every living being, every plant, every current of energy becomes visible to my awareness. Like this, Jedi perception is, Yoda observed with evident interest. Yet different also. You're drawing energy from your surroundings, Windu noted, his tone suggesting both caution and fascination. Without the mediation of midi-chlorians. Midi-chlorians? Naruto questioned. Microscopic life forms that connect living beings to the Force, Shaak Ti explained. Their concentration determines one's potential Force sensitivity. Interesting. Naruto replied. We have no equivalent concept. In my world, everyone has chakra, though the capacity to mold and use it varies widely. The demonstration continued, with Naruto showing various other techniques, basic elemental manipulations, sealing concepts, and sensing abilities. Throughout, the Jedi Masters observed with growing interest, occasionally Rex. Ting clarification or suggesting parallels to Force techniques. As the session concluded, Yoda hobbled forward, his ancient eyes studying Naruto with newfound respect. Much to learn from each other, we have. Different paths to similar truths, perhaps. I'd be honored to continue these exchanges, Naruto replied sincerely. Your Force abilities are fascinating as well. Perhaps next session, Shaak Ti suggested. We could demonstrate Jedi techniques for Naruto's benefit. A true cultural exchange. Agree, I do, Yoda nodded. But for now, prepare for your meeting with the Chancellor, you must. Political waters, deep they are. Quote, Naruto recognized the dismissal and bowed respectfully to the Jedi Masters before following Shaak Ti from the training hall. As they walked, he sensed her approval of his performance. You showed both power and restraint, she commented. Master Windu was particularly impressed, though he wouldn't admit it easily. He seems cautious by nature, Naruto observed diplomatically. Master Windu has developed a lightsaber form called Vapad, Shaak Ti explained. It channels one's inner darkness into controlled combat, walking the edge of the dark side without falling in. This makes him particularly sensitive to potential threats. And he sees me as a potential threat, Naruto concluded. He sees everything as a potential threat, Shaak Ti corrected with the faintest hint of a smile. It's what makes him an excellent guardian. But he also recognizes valuable allies when he encounters them. They reached a turbolift that carried them toward the upper levels of the temple. Your meeting with Chancellor Palpatine is scheduled for midday, Shaak Ti informed him. I will accompany you to the Senate building but will not attend the meeting itself. A compromise between the Chancellor's request for a private audience and the Council's desire to maintain oversight. I understand, Naruto assured her. I'll be careful, I have no doubt, she replied, studying him with those penetrating eyes. You've navigated political complexities before, I sense. Being a Jinchuriki, a tailed beast host, meant politics was unavoidable, Naruto acknowledged. And as someone who aspires to become Hokage, understanding political realities is essential. Hokage, the leadership position you mentioned yesterday. Naruto nodded. Leader of my village, responsible for its protection and prosperity. Similar to your Jedi Council in some ways, though with more direct governmental authority. A worthy ambition, Shaak Ti commented as they exited the turbolift. The desire to serve rather than rule is the mark of true leadership. Their conversation paused as they entered the temple refectory, a large hall where Jedi gathered for communal meals. Despite the bustle of activity, a noticeable hush fell as Naruto entered, hundreds of curious eyes turning in their direction. Perhaps we should dine elsewhere, Shaak Ti suggested, noting Naruto's discomfort at being the center of attention. No, he replied with determination. If I'm going to be here for a while, better to become familiar rather than mysterious. Mystery breeds fear. Familiarity builds trust. She considered this perspective before nodding approval. Wise beyond your years, Naruto Uzumaki. They collected simple meals from the serving area and found seats at a less crowded table. Gradually, the initial fascination with Naruto's presence diminished as Jedi returned to their conversations, though occasional glances still came their way. A group of young Padawans at a nearby table whispered among themselves before one. A Twi'lek girl perhaps 13 years old, approached with nervous determination. Excuse me, she addressed Naruto politely. Is it true you can create 8 copies of yourself that are actually real? Shaak Ti began to intervene, but Naruto smiled warmly at the young Jedi. It is. Would you like to see? The girl's eyes widened with excitement as she nodded enthusiastically. With a subtle hand sign and minimal chakra expenditure, Naruto created a single shadow clone beside their table. Nice to meet you, the clone greeted with a friendly wave. The young Padawan's mouth formed a perfect O of amazement. That's incredible, and they can think independently. Completely, Naruto confirmed. They have all my memories and abilities, just less chakra, energy, reserves. Could they teach us? Another Padawan asked, abandoning pretense of disinterest to join the conversation. I'm afraid not, Naruto replied kindly. The technique, UE relies on a different energy system than your force abilities. But I'm sure your Jedi training offers equally amazing possibilities. Shaak Ti watched this exchange with thoughtful interest. You have a natural way with younglings, she observed after the Padawans had returned to their table, chattering excitedly about the demonstration. I teach at the academy sometimes, back home, Naruto explained. And I remember what it was like to be their age. Curious about everything, eager to learn new techniques. Were you a disciplined student? She asked, a hint of amusement in her tone suggesting she had her suspicions. Naruto laughed. Quite the opposite. I was the troublemaker, pulling pranks, skipping classes, failing exams. I graduated with the lowest scores in my class. Shaak Ti's eyes widened in genuine surprise. Yet now you command techniques that impress even Jedi masters. What changed? I found my ninja way, Naruto replied, his expression growing more serious. And PLE who believed in me when I couldn't believe in myself. My teachers, Iruka-sensei, Kakashi-sensei, Jiraiya, saw potential I didn't know I had. The greatest gift a teacher can offer, Shaak Ti agreed, is vision of what a student might become. Their meal concluded in companionable conversation about teaching methodologies and the similarities between Padawan training and shinobi education. As they were preparing to depart for the Senate building, Naruto's heightened senses detected a subtle shift in the temple's energy, a ripple of tension spreading through the force-sensitive occupants. Shaak Ti felt it too, her posture straightening as her hand moved unconsciously closer to her lightsaber. Something's wrong, she murmured. A Jedi Knight approached their table with urgent purpose. Master T. The temple defenses have detected unusual energy signatures approaching Coruscant. The Council requests your presence immediately. What kind of energy signatures? She asked, rising gracefully. Unknown. But they match patterns recorded during the incident on Felucia, the knight replied, casting a significant glance toward Naruto. I'll attend the council immediately, Shaak confirmed before turning to Naruto. It seems your meeting with the Chancellor may need postponing. Or this could be related, Naruto suggested. The timing seems suspicious. Shaak considered this. You may be right. Come with me to the council. Your insights could prove valuable if these energy signatures are connected to your arrival. They followed the knight through corridors now buzzing. With purposeful activity as Jedi responded to the alert. The turbolift carried them swiftly to the council chamber, where several masters had already gathered around a holographic display showing Coruscant's orbital security grid. Master Windu acknowledged their arrival with a curt nod. Master T. Uzumaki, we've detected 7 vessels approaching on an unusual trajectory. Their energy signatures don't match any known Republic or Separatist design. The hologram showed sleek ships with configurations unlike any Naruto had seen during his brief exposure to this galaxy's technology. They moved with peculiar precision, maintaining perfect formation despite evasive maneuvers from Republic patrol craft. There's something familiar about the energy they're emitting, Naruto observed, studying the readouts. It has the same resonance pattern as the dimensional rift that brought me here, but distorted somehow. Corrupted. Corrupted how? Yoda asked, his ancient eyes narrowing with concern. In my world, Naruto explained, we have techniques that can twist natural energy into unnatural forms. This feels similar. Like someone has taken the primordial energy and forced it into patterns it wasn't meant to follow. Separatist experimentation, perhaps, suggested Ki-Adi-Mundi. Count Dooku has shown interest in ancient force techniques before. Or something worse, Shaak said quietly. Something that sensed the dimensional breach and responded to it. The hologram updated as Republic defensive systems engaged the unknown vessels. Energy weapons fired from orbital platforms, only to be absorbed by shimmering fields around the ships, not deflected like normal shields, but seemingly consumed. They're feeding on the energy, Naruto realized. Converting it somehow. Alert all Jedi in the temple. Windu ordered. Full defensive protocols. These ships are clearly hostile and specifically targeting Force users. As if confirming his assessment, the vessels abruptly changed course, accelerating directly toward the Jedi Temple with single-minded purpose. They've bypassed the Senate District entirely, Shaak noted with alarm. Whatever their purpose, it's focused on the Order, not the Republic government. Republic fighters moved to intercept, but the unknown vessels displayed maneuverability that defied conventional physics, weaving through defensive fire with impossible precision. 2 Republic cruisers moved to create a blockade, only to have the smaller ships pass through gaps in their formation that should have been too narrow to navigate. They'll reach the temple perimeter in minutes, Windu stated grimly. We should evacuate the younglings to the lower levels. No time. There may be, Yoda countered. Defend our home, we must. Naruto stepped closer to the holographic display, studying the energy patterns with the heightened perception of Sage mode. These ships, they're not just mechanized vessels. There's something organic about them, almost like they're partially alive. Sentient ships, Ki-Adi-Mundi questioned skeptically. Not sentient exactly, Naruto clarified. More like extensions of will. Someone or something is controlling them directly through this corrupted energy. A temple alarm sounded. 3 long tones followed by 2 short, signaling imminent threat. The masters moved with disciplined urgency, Windu issuing commands through his comlink while Yoda consulted briefly with other council members. Naruto, Shaak addressed him directly, your experience with this energy may prove crucial. Will you assist in the temple's defense? Of course, he replied without hesitation. Whatever brought these things here, I'm partly responsible. Responsible, you are not, Yoda corrected firmly. But helpful, you may be. With Master T, go to the main entrance. There, the first attack will come. Naruto and Shaak moved swiftly through the temple, now transformed from serene sanctuary to fortress preparing for siege. Jedi of all ranks assumed defensive positions, lightsabers ready but not yet ignited. Temple guards in their distinctive masks took up positions at key junctions, their double blah. Dead yellow lightsabers humming with contained power. They reached the grand entrance hall just as the first impacts shook the temple's exterior. Through the massive doors, they could hear the screech of tearing metal and stone as something forced its way through the outer defenses. Whatever comes through those doors, Shaak said calmly as she ignited her blue lightsaber, is likely unlike anything we've encountered before. Be prepared for the unexpected. That's my specialty, Naruto replied with a confident smile, forming the hand signs for his favorite technique. Multi-shadow clone jutsu. Dozens of shadow clones appeared throughout the entrance hall, each ready for combat. The assembled Jedi reacted with surprise at the sudden multiplication of their ally, but quickly adapted, adjusting their positions to complement the new formation. The massive temple doors shuddered under tremendous impact. A second blow dented the ancient metal inward. The third burst them open completely, revealing the threat beyond. Naruto had expected battle droids, perhaps, or armored troops, conventional forces despite their unusual energy signatures. What entered instead defied easy categorization. Vaguely humanoid in shape, the entities appeared composed of shifting, semi-transparent material that seemed neither fully solid nor gaseous. Within their amorphous forms, pulses of sickly gray energy flowed like corrupted blood through veins. Each stood roughly 2 meters tall, with elongated limbs that terminated in wickedly sharp crystalline formations. Most disturbing, they emitted O presence in the Force or natural energy, not even the void that might signify absence. They simply existed outside the normal parameters of life as both Jedi and Shinobi understood it. Dimensional constructs, Naruto realized aloud. Created from the same energy that forms the barrier between worlds. The entities paused in the shattered doorway, their featureless faces turning toward Naruto with obvious recognition. Then, with chilling synchronization, they surged forward into the temple. The Jedi met the attack with disciplined coordination, lightsabers carving through the air in precise arcs. But where the energy blades should have bisected their targets, they instead passed through with minimal resistance, causing the entities to momentarily distort but quickly reform. Conventional weapons are ineffective, Shaak called out, adjusting her tactics to focus on force pushes that at least temporarily disrupted the creature's cohesion. Naruto's shadow clones engaged from multiple angles, testing different approaches. Physical attacks proved similarly ineffective, limbs passing through the entities, forms with only temporary disruption. One clone attempted a Rasengan, driving the spiraling chakra sphere directly into a creature's core. This produced a more significant reaction. The entity shrieked in a frequency that set teeth on edge as its form destabilized more dramatically. The corrupted energy within it flared, attempting to absorb the Rasengan's chakra but failing to contain the concentrated rotation. Their composition can't handle highly organized energy, Naruto called out to the defending Jedi. They absorb dispersed energy but concentrated forms disrupt them. Shaak adapted immediately, shifting from broad force pushes to precise, focused telekinetic strikes targeting the energy cores visible within each entity. Other Jedi followed her example, changing tactics to emphasize concentration rather than power. Naruto formed the hand signs for a more advanced technique. Wind style. Vacuum bullets. He exhaled sharply, releasing compressed balls of wind chakra that punched through 3 entities in succession, disrupting their cohesion long for Jedi to deliver focused force attacks that finally dispersed them completely. The battle flowed through the entrance hall as more entities poured in through the breached doors. Jedi and Dao clones worked in impromptu partnerships, combining their different approaches to overcome the unusual threat. Shaak moved with astonishing grace and precision, her lightsaber tracing patterns had seemed to bend space itself as she complemented her physical attacks with perfectly timed force concentrations. Despite their initial success in developing effective tactics, the defenders faced overwhelming numbers. For each entity they dispersed, 2 more entered through the massive doorway, their advance implacable and coordinated. We need to strike at the source, Naruto called to Shaak as they momentarily regrouped behind a line of temple guards. These are just extensions, projections from whatever's controlling the ships. Agreed, she replied, her serene composure maintained even in combat. But reaching the ships while they're protected by these entities would be nearly impossible. Naruto considered their options, reaching out with sage perception to assess the energy patterns throughout the temple and beyond. The ships have established a perimeter around the temple, creating a containment field of some kind. They're trying to isolate us, not just physically but energetically. Cutting the temple off from the cosmic force, Shaak realized with alarm. If they succeed, all your force abilities would be compromised, Naruto confirmed. We need to disrupt that field before it fully forms. He closed his eyes briefly, formulating a plan. I need to get to the temple roof. From there, I can use a technique that might break through their containment. I'll clear a path, Shaak decided, calling to several nearby Jedi Knights. Protect the main entrance. Master Windu is bringing reinforcements from the south wing. We're going to attempt to neutralize the source. With 4 additional Jedi forming a protective formation around them, Shaak led Naruto toward a service turbolift that would provide the most direct route to the temple's upper levels. The entities seemed to sense their purpose, converging on their position with increased determination. They're prioritizing us now, Naruto observed as they fought their way down a corridor. They definitely recognize me specifically. Suggesting your energy signature is significant to their purpose, Shaak agreed, deflecting a crystalline projectile launched by one of the creatures. Perhaps you represent a threat to whatever sent them. They reached the turbolift, but found its systems non-responsive, the temple's power grid compromised by the attack. We'll need to take the emergency stairs, one of the Jedi Knights suggested, indicating a sealed doorway nearby. As they changed course, a massive tremor shook the temple to its foundations. The ceiling above them cracked, sections beginning to collapse. Naruto acted instinctively, golden chakra flaring around him as he manifested a partial Kurama avatar, just enough to form energy arms that braced the falling structure. Go, he urged the others. I'll hold this stable and follow. Shaak hesitated only momentarily before leading the other Jedi through the doorway. As they disappeared into the stairwell, Naruto carefully manipulated the Kurama chakra to deposit the debris safely rather than simply dropping it. The delay cost him. Entities converged from both directions, cutting off his route to the stairwell. Unlike their previous straightforward attacks, they now moved with tactical coordination, positioning to trap rather than eliminate him. They're adapting, Kurama observed within their shared consciousness. Learning from each encounter. Whatever intelligence controls them, it's formidable. Then we'll just have to be unpredictable, Naruto replied, forming a Rasengan in each hand. With precise timing, he slammed the spiraling spheres into the floor beneath him, creating a controlled breach that dropped him to the level below. He landed in what appeared to be a library or archive, tall shelves filled with data storage devices and ancient texts. The room was mercifully empty of both entities and Jedi, providing a moment to reorient. I need to find another way up, he murmured, scanning the chamber for exits. There, Kurama directed his attention to an architectural feature, a series of internal support columns that extended upward through multiple levels of the temple. With enough chakra enhancement, you could scale those directly. Good eye, Naruto acknowledged, moving quickly to the nearest column. Channeling chakra to his hands and feet, he began climbing the mass. Stone pillar with the adhesive technique every academy student learned. As he ascended through the damaged ceiling into the level above, he found himself in a different wing of the temple, one currently engaged in fierce combat between Jedi defenders and the invading entities. Naruto recognized Mace Windu at the center of the conflict, his purple lightsaber moving with such speed it left persistent afterimages in the air. Unlike other Jedi, Windu's attacks seemed more effective against the entities, his unique lightsaber form somehow disrupting their cohesion more effectively. Not wanting to interrupt the Jedi Master's concentration, Naruto continued his ascent, passing through 2 more levels before reaching a grand atrium that soared upward toward the temple's peaked roof. Here, he could see the sky through a massive circular skylight, and the alien vessels hovering beyond, their hulls pulsing with the same corrupted energy that animated the entities below. Almost there, he encouraged himself, calculating the most efficient route to the roof access visible at the atrium's upper level. A familiar presence approached from a connecting corridor, Shaak, moving with determined grace despite visible fatigue and a minor injury to her left arm. She spotted him across the atrium and changed course to rendezvous. The central spire is compromised, she reported when they met beneath the skylight. These creatures have established some kind of energy nexus at its base. Master Yoda is attempting to disrupt it, but with limited success. We need to break their containment field, Naruto reminded her. From the roof, I can use a technique that might be powerful enough to disrupt all 7 ships simultaneously. The roof access is this way, Shaak directed, leading him toward a spiral staircase that climbed the atrium's perimeter. But it's likely guarded. These entities seem to anticipate our strategic objectives. She was proven correct moments later as they encountered a concentration of creatures at the staircase's base. These appeared different from those they'd fought previously, larger, more defined, with crystalline structures that formed primitive armor around their energy cores. They're evolving, Naruto realized with alarm. Adapting to our tactics. Then we must adapt faster, Shaak replied, her lightsaber igniting with a snap hiss that echoed through the atrium. What followed was the most challenging combat Naruto had experienced since arriving in this dimension. The enhanced entities coordinated their attacks with unsettling precision, anticipating standard evasive maneuvers and countering established tactics. Their crystalline projections functioned as both weapons and shields, deflecting even concentrated energy attacks that had proven effective earlier. Naruto created a ring of shadow clones to provide multiple angles of attack, while Shaak employed a lightsaber form Naruto hadn't yet seen her use, more aggressive than her previous style. With fluid transitions between offense and defense. Together, they gradually pushed forward, gaining ground meter by meter toward the crucial staircase. We need to break through decisively. Shaak called to him during a momentary respite. My force abilities are weakening as their containment field strengthens. Naruto nodded, reaching a decision. I've been conserving my most powerful form. But now seems like the time. Stand behind me, Master T. As she complied, Naruto closed his eyes briefly, centering himself before channeling chakra in a specific pattern. Golden energy erupted around him, coalescing into the complete Kurama avatar, a massive, 9-tailed fox composed of luminous chakra that dwarfed the entities before them. The transformation elicited visible shock from Shaak, though her Jedi training allowed her to quickly adapt to this unexpected development. Most impressive, she commented with characteristic understatement. Within the protective energy construct, Naruto directed a focused attack forward, the Kurama avatar extending a massive paw that swept aside the advanced entities like leaves in a gale. Their crystalline defenses shattered under the overwhelming force, energy cores dispersing in flashes of sickly green light. Paths clear, Naruto called, maintaining the transformation as they raced up the spiral staircase, Kurama avatar adapting its size to fit the confines of the architecture. They emerged onto the temple roof to find 3 of the alien vessels hovering directly overhead, their hulls pulsing in sync. Renized rhythm as they projected the containment field downward. From this vantage point, Naruto could see the other 4 ships positioned equidistantly around the temple's perimeter, completing the energy circuit. Whatever you're planning, Shaak said urgently, do it quickly. I can feel the force becoming increasingly distant. Naruto nodded, the Kurama avatar shifting around him as he prepared the technique. I'll need to drop this form momentarily to gather natural energy. Can you protect me for about 30 seconds? I will, she promised, taking up a defensive position beside him. The golden energy receded as Naruto sat cross-legged on the temple roof, entering sage mode with practiced efficiency. The orange pigmentation appeared around his eyes as he gathered natural energy, combining it with his own chakra and Kurama's in perfect balance. Sensing the change in energy patterns, the ships above adjusted their positions, energy weapons charging on their undersides. Shaak stood protectively over Naruto, lightsaber at ready as she simultaneously attempted to disrupt the ships, targeting systems with the force. The first energy blast struck nearby, shattering stone, and sending fragments flying that Shaak deflected with precise lightsaber movements. The second and third followed in quick succession, forcing her to divide her attention between multiple threats. Almost ready, Naruto assured her, the natural energy reaching optimal levels for his technique. A fourth blast struck too close for conventional defense. Shaak abandoned her lightsaber form and thrust both hands upward, creating a force barrier that barely contained the explosion. The effort visibly drained her, dropping her to one knee as the ships prepared another volley. Now, Naruto's eyes snapped open, revealing the cross-shaped pupils of his most powerful form, Six Paths Sage Mode combined with Kurama's chakra. He rose in a fluid motion, golden energy once again enveloping him. But now patterned with distinctive black markings that seemed to absorb light rather than emit it. Six Paths. Massive Recentrican. He called out, forming the advanced technique not with physical movement but through pure chakra manipulation. Multiple massive shuriken-shaped energy constructs materialized around him, each containing a different elemental nature: fire, wind, lightning, earth, water, and the unique truth-seeking orbs of Six Paths energy. With a gesture, Naruto sent these devastating techniques hurtling upward toward the alien vessels. The ships attempted evasive maneuvers, but the Recentricans tracked them with unerring precision, expanding upon impact to engulf each vessel in spheres of elemental chaos. The corrupted energy that powered the ships reacted violently with the pure natural energy of Naruto's techniques, creating cascading disruptions that rippled through the containment field. For a moment, the sky above the Jedi Temple resembled a spectacular stellar event. 7 miniature supernovae blooming simultaneously in different colors as each ship's energy core destabilized and collapsed. The resultant shockwave washed over the temple in a pulse of purified energy, sweeping away the remaining entities within the structure as their connection to their source was severed. Throughout the temple, Jedi felt their connection to the Force surge back at full strength. The artificial dampening field shattered beyond recovery. As the spectacular light show faded, Naruto allowed his Six Paths mode to recede, the expenditure of chakra leaving him momentarily fatigued though not depleted. He turned to check on Shaak, finding her watching him with an expression of profound wonder rarely seen on a Jedi Master's composed features. "That was," she began, seemingly at a loss for adequate description. "A bit excessive," Naruto suggested with a sheepish smile. "I did warn the council some of my techniques could be destructive." "Effective," she decided finally, rising gracefully despite her earlier exertion. "And precisely what was needed." She gazed upward where debris from the destroyed vessels was still dispersing in Coruscant's upper atmosphere. "Though I suspect the Senate will have questions about unauthorized displays of power in the capital's airspace." "Politics again," Naruto sighed, though his smile remained. "Some things really are the same in every dimension." Before Shaak could respond, her comlink chimed urgently. She activated it to hear Mace Windu's voice. "Master T, report. The entities have dissipated throughout the temple. What is your situation?" "The threat has been neutralized," she replied, glancing at Naruto with newfound respect. "Our visitor has destroyed the source vessels. The temple is secure." "Understood. The council will convene immediately to assess the situation. Bring him directly to the chamber." As the communication ended, Shaak and Naruto made their way back through the temple, witnessing the aftermath of the brief but intense conflict. Damage was extensive in some areas, though remarkably, there appeared to be no Jedi casualties, injuries certainly, but the entities had Med focused on containment rather than elimination. Jedi were already engaged in rescue and recovery operations, clearing debris and tending to the wounded with efficient coordination. Many paused to acknowledge Naruto with respectful nods or gestures as word of his role in ending the attack spread rapidly through the temple. "You've earned considerable goodwill today," Shaak observed as they approached the council chamber. "Even the most skeptical masters will find it difficult to question your intentions after this." "I just did what anyone would do," Naruto replied honestly. "Defended people who offered me shelter and friendship. A simple principle that many find difficult to practice," she noted with approval. "Especially when it requires such personal risk." The council Beer showed signs of the recent battle. Cracked windows, damaged furnishings, scorch marks on ancient walls. Most of the council members had assembled despite these conditions, their faces showing varying degrees of fatigue and concern. Master Yoda sat in his customary seat, appearing outwardly unaffected by recent events, though Naruto sensed a deeper weariness in the ancient master's force presence. "Naruto Uzumaki," he greeted with a respectful nod. "Grateful. The Jedi Order is, for your assistance today." "I'm just glad I could help," Naruto replied sincerely. "Though I fear my presence may have been what attracted these entities in the first place." "A possibility we cannot discount," Windu acknowledged, his stern expression softened slightly by grudging respect. "However, your action in defending the temple demonstrate your character clearly. Master T has reported your remarkable abilities, Ki Adi Mundi added. Particularly this 6 paths technique you employed against the vessels. Most impressive. And concerning, added another master whom Naruto hadn't met previously. Such power in a single individual raises important questions. Questions that can wait. Shaak. KT interjected with unusual assertiveness. Naruto has exhausted himself defending our home. Interrogation should not be his reward. Agree, I do, Yoda nodded firmly. Rest and recovery, our priority should be. Analysis of these events, time it will require. There is one immediate concern, Windu noted. The Chancellor's office has been attempting to contact the temple since the attack began. With communications restored, we can no longer delay responding. As if summoned by the mention, a hologram materialized in the center of the chamber, an older human male with a dignified bearing and concerned expression. Chancellor Palpatine, Naruto presumed, recognizing the political leader from descriptions and images he'd seen in the temple archives. Masters of the Jedi Council, Palpatine greeted, his voice cultured and measured. I'm relieved to see you safe. We've been monitoring the situation from the Senate building with great concern. These unknown vessels appeared to target the temple specifically. Under control, the situation is, Chancellor, Yoda assured him. Though significant damage, the temple has sustained. I'm pleased to hear it, Palpatine replied, his gaze shifting to Naruto with evident interest. And this must be the interdimensional visitor I've heard so much about. It seems fortuitous that he arrived just before this unusual attack. Naruto Uzumaki assisted in defending the temple. Windu stated neutrally. His knowledge of the energy these entities employed proved invaluable. Indeed, Palpatine's eyebrows rose slightly. How fascinating. I look forward to our scheduled meeting even more now, though I understand it may need postponing given these dramatic events. Actually, Naruto spoke up, earning surprised glances from several council members. I'd still be happy to meet today, Chancellor, if that works for your schedule. These entities were connected to the dimensional rift that brought me here. Discussing that connection might help us understand why they attacked and whether more might follow. Palpatine's expression brightened. Most commendable, young man. Your dedication to resolving this situation despite personal exhaustion speaks highly of your character. Shall we say 2 hours from now? That should allow some time for recovery. With the council's reluctant approval, the meeting was scheduled, and Palpatine's hologram faded. Naruto sensed mixed reactions among the Jedi Masters: concern, caution, and in some cases, resignation. Sure you are, about this meeting? Yoda asked him directly. I think it's necessary, Naruto replied honestly. From what I've gathered, the Chancellor has considerable influence over Republic resources that might help us understand what's happening. And politically speaking, refusing to meet after agreeing would create more suspicion than cooperation. Several masters exchanged impressed glances at this astute political assessment. Very well, Windu nodded. But remember that the Chancellor's priorities are political, focused on the Republic as a whole. The Jedi Order maintains independence for good reason. I understand, Naruto assured him. I won't make commitments or share sensitive information without consulting the Council first. Master T, Yoda addressed the Togruta Jedi, accompany Naruto to his quarters. You should rest, both of you need, before this meeting. As they were dismissed, Naruto and Shaak T made their way through the damaged temple toward the residential section, which had thankfully sustained minimal impacts. Neither spoke immediately, processing the intense events they had shared. Finally, as they neared Naruto's quarters, Shaak T broke the companionable silence. I must confess, Naruto Uzumaki, you continue to surprise me. In good ways, I hope, he replied with a tired smile. Indeed, she paused, considering her words carefully, a habit Naruto had noticed was characteristic of her thoughtful nature. What you demonstrated today, not just your combat abilities, which are extraordinary, but your willingness to risk yourself for people you barely know, speaks to a character forged through both hardship and compassion. The will of fire, Naruto explained, seeing her questioning look. It's what we call the spirit of our village, the belief that love is the key to peace, that protecting others gives us true strength. A philosophy not unlike the Jedi Code in its highest ideals, she observed. though perhaps expressed more emotionally than our traditions typically allow. They reached his door, and Naruto turned to face her directly. "Thank you for fighting alongside me today, Master T. Your skill is extraordinary. I learned just watching your lightsaber technique." "Shaak T," she corrected gently. "After facing death together, I believe we can dispense with formalities in private conversation." "Shaak T," he amended with a genuine smile. "Then you should definitely call me Naruto." "Rest well, Naruto," she replied, the faintest curve of her lips suggesting a smile. "I'll return in time to accompany you to the Senate building." As she departed, Naruto entered his quarters and practically collapsed onto the sleeping mat. The full weight of the day's exertions finally catching up with him. Within minutes, he had fallen into deep, dreamless sleep, the body's natural response to chakra depletion and physical stress. He awoke an hour later, refreshed but with muscles protesting the intense combat they had endured. A sonic shower and fresh clothes improved his condition considerably, as did a substantial meal from the food synthesizer, programmed to provide optimal nutrition for recovery. A soft chime announced Shaak's arrival precisely when expected. When the door slid open, Naruto was impressed by her appearance. No sign remained of the battle they had fought hours earlier. Her robes were pristine, her posture perfect, her serene composure fully restored. "You look like you spent the day meditating, not fighting interdimensional invaders," he commented with admiration. The end. Remember to subscribe and like this video. See you in the next video.